What's up, Diode Dynamic fans? So today, I've been waiting for this for 7 months. I first saw the Diode Dynamics D-switch at SEMA last October 2024. I spoke with John and Paul from the team and had a bunch of questions. Full disclaimer, I actually run a Switch Pro SP9100 now. I had that in my Tacoma, so it has been running for the last 2 years. When I saw this at SEMA, first thing I asked, what's the price? And we're going to do a little compare and contrast as well, because if you take a look at the Switch Pro SP9100, online, it appears to be $650. Online, the Diode Dynamics D-switch, this guy, is $599. So $50 difference, right? Wrong. And we're going to get into that. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and go over some of the features that really drew me in and why I'm so excited for this particular product. The very first thing, dedicated backlight channel. This has 8 different controllers. It actually has 9, and they just don't advertise it as such. So as you guys should know by now, I run pretty much exclusively Diode Dynamics, which includes their best-in-class DRL functionality. One of the drawbacks, or minor annoyances, if you will, with running the Switch Pro or any other system right now, is that there is no dedicated backlight DRL channel. And the industry as a whole has moved forward, and you're starting to see more and more competitors start to pick that up, including even Oxbeam, Nightlight, and the works that you can get from direct China, even from Temu, Amazon, eBay. A lot of these are catching up, but the light controllers are not. Light controllers are actually pretty largely unchanged for the most part, with in my opinion, the Switch Pro SP9100 really kind of setting the industry standard when it came out. There hasn't been a lot of movement since. There's just been a bunch of people kind of catching up, you know. We had people try to use the Trigger 6, which is a great functionality because you don't got to go through your firewall, but guess what? It's consistently sending out a signal. So if you don't use your rig all the time, your battery goes dead. And a lot of people found that one out the hard way. Then you have your Oxbeams that started out with like 60 amp concurrent, which really is not a lot. But they started to pick up things so that you had regular on, you had a momentary hit. So for instance, if you had an air horn or something like that, you just hit it and it, bink, and then turn on and off, just like that. And then you had your strobe functionality. So you would hit it and you would be able to run your chase lights and stuff like that. All of that was already done with the SP9100. Everybody was just kind of keeping up. Enter the scene, Diode Dynamics. Diode Dynamics now recognize these trends that are emerging and that there's not really any other company that's addressing this. So my number one thing that made me most excited to change it out is the dedicated backlight channel. Looking through the stats, which I'm sure you guys are going to do on your own, because if you're making this much of an investment, you're not just going to take some clown off of YouTube's word for it. I will say that concurrent amps are 125 amps, which blows away anything that you're going to find from the 3 major budget competitors, which is Oxbeam, limited to 80, Nightlight, which I believe is also limited to 80, and Last Fit, which is also limited to 80. Majority of the models that you see out there on Amazon, eBay, Temu are 60 amps. And if you don't run a lot of lights, so maybe you just run rock lights and some ditch lights, those are fine. Please don't mistake me. I install by far and away more of those brands than anything else combined. But if you're going to spend the money and invest thousands, literally, in some of your off-road lighting and your overland gear and things along those lines, why are you going to skimp out on the one thing that helps protect your lighting, right? You really should. I mean, at this point, if you're running Diode Dynamics, if you're running Rigid, if you're running Baja Designs, if you're running Morimoto, if you're running Nacho Off Lighting, KCs, you're spending literally thousands. Why are you going to skimp out on a light controller? I never understood that. This is much more advanced than what you're going to find in the budgetary as well. So, and the nice thing is, as I kind of alluded to and that we're going to get into, this is actually cheaper because the Switch Pro at $650 is only $50 more. But what you're going to find out is you then need to get a power tray, you need to get a circuit breaker, you need to get a bus bar, and you need to get a bus block at a minimum. And again, we're dealing with electronics and very expensive items. So you should really be buying quality products for that, which is like Blue Sea. So off the top of my head, my Switch Pro setup is more like $800, $850. And that's me doing the install. I've asked other friends that do installs around what they charge, and it ranges from anywhere to $1,000 to $1,500. It is a lot of wiring to get those up. Totally worth it. Again, I need to reiterate, I am by no means clowning on Switch Pro SP9100. I've had it over 2 years. It has been phenomenal. Just on a personal note, the losing a circuit because of DRL was driving me up a wall. So we're going to go ahead and install this actually on the Landcruiser 250. Now, those of you that own Landcruiser 250s or any of the Toyota hybrids where the 12-volt battery is in the back of the vehicle, you know that we are about to figure out we have a fun challenge ahead. We need to be able to identify where in the engine bay we can actually tap into so that we can get the power for this unit to be able to power all our lightings. And don't worry, I've already solved that, and I'm going to cover it with you guys all the way 100%. It's very easy. Installing this is very easy. Installing this also as well is very nice because it is one nice contained unit. You don't have bus bars, you don't have bus blocks, you don't have multiple color wires, you don't have any of that. You have everything feeding into this unit and out of this unit, making it nice and neat. And for myself that attends a lot of shows and expos and events and SEMA, we sometimes have to lift up our engine bay, and what it looks like under there is very important. And those of you at home rolling your eyes right now might be tempted to go ahead and look at your own engine bay, because I've seen some rat nests that people have sent. In fact, that's one of the things that I do in my side business is clean up wiring. This makes it much easier to keep those wires clean. So I think I've spoken enough. I'm pretty sure you guys, if you're truly interested, are going to go ahead and research this a little bit more and look at the hard stats. But let's stick to the very important start. Dedicated backlight channel. 125 concurrent amps. So this can handle a lot without the need of a relay. It has a Bluetooth app that it connects through, and you can adjust on the fly. So you don't need to go through, make your adjustments, close the app, reopen the app. You can do it right then and there. In addition to that, like the Switch Pro, it also includes trigger modes as well. So for instance, if I wanted to go in every time I turn on my brights, I wanted all my forward-facing lighting to turn on, we can do that too. And I'm going to go ahead and get into that with you guys as well. This is going to be a very in-depth video, probably one of my more from an instruction standpoint, because again, you know, this is a significant investment. I know your bumpers and your suspension and your tires and your rims were a lot more, but trying to convince somebody that it's a better idea to get one of these versus $125 6-channel aux beam off of Amazon sometimes can be a task. And I've seen some really bad things happen from people that have went and gone that route. I've had controllers that, I mean, didn't even last 2 months. I personally have fried open a controller on an aux beam when I was first starting out because I had too many things plugged into the 30 amp channel. I've had friends that have shared stories about using cheap components and them actually catching fire and overheating and totaling the car as well. So this is actually a much more important topic than a lot of people give it credit. And I'm glad that you guys decided to tune in and do some research. And I'm super excited to share the install process with you and how we're going to wire this all up. So that being said, let's get into the Landcruiser, which is behind this fake brick wall, and get into it. Yeah. Okay, team, we got our Switch Pro out. As you can see, it's out of there. The controller wire's still there. The wires you see there, those are from my lights that are already installed. And then the little shiny part is I just took a heat gun and closed those holes back up from the terminal block and bus bars. So we got a nice clean area here again. The other area where you can mount is here. Now on this one, I have a 750 amp A&L fuse, which is my positive. I ran it all the way from the back. If you're interested in that, go to my channel and there's a video on how to run a 2.0 gauge from the back 12 volt way in the back cargo area to here. And this way I can actually directly power my winch. However, the power source for this guy is going to be off of this point right here, and we're going to get into that in a second. What we're looking for now is where are we going to mount it. So you can mount it here, which is a nice short run with your positive, and then there's a negative back here, and I'll point those out. So really quickly, there's your negative. Okay, so here's this module, and there's your negative that you can get for your D-switch. And you can mount it right on the top. Nice clean install. Your positive is going to come from this point. I prefer to go over here. And the reason for that is the D-switch fits perfectly right over the top like that. Now, we are going to connect our positive and our negative, and we're going to have all sorts of wires coming in and connecting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circuits and the backlights. So all of our wires are actually going to come up through here and feed, and then the cover goes on top, and this is all you see. I'm choosing to go here because wire management is going to be much easier. I've got this humongous cavity where the 12 volt battery traditionally goes. And before I do that, I obviously need to check to make sure that I have clearance. So let's get this out of the way and take a look at our fuse block and make sure that we're good. So we will go ahead and remove the cover, and you guys are going to see something here we're going to get into in a second. Remember, I'm replacing an existing system. This is an add a fuse. So anyways, though, going back into it, we're looking at mounting basically right at the corners. And in looking here, we've got a little bit of distance there. So if we screw down, we're not going to go into that relay. And we got plenty of room over here. So this is a safe location to go ahead and mount from. And that's what we're going to choose to do. Really quickly here, this is called your ACC add a fuse. And you're definitely going to need it. And what it does is make sure that the unit is only sending power to your lights when your ignition is on, aka the car is on. This is going to make sure that you do not drain your battery, and it's also going to make sure that you do not have any vampire drains as well. Sometimes, especially on some of the cheaper light kits, and if they have Bluetooth, what's going to happen is you're going to connect to your positive and your negative. You're going to have your Bluetooth, and you're going to have a manual on-off switch or a push button. That thing's sending Bluetooth signal the entire time and will slowly drain your battery if it's not accounted for. So the D-switch takes care of all of that, and this is where we're going to go. So, and this one, the add a circuit, and I will drop a link to it. We, in this case, go into 1, 2, let me go ahead and pull this so you guys at home. So we go into 7.5, 7.5, and then there's a 10 and a 10, and we put the 15 in right there. And that 15, according to this right here, oops, upside down. So 7.5, 7.5, and excuse me, 15 right there. That is the ECU or ECT number 1. So let me put him back in his correct. Now the way that these work is they come traditionally with a fuse. You can see they're 2 different colors. So you pull, in this case, your 15 amp fuse, which was right here, and you put him in this guy, and you use the one that's already existing, and you just go ahead, plug him right back into his little spot right there. Sorry guys, low light. Right there. And now what happens is your regular module is still going to function as if the 15's there, but we've added an additional 15 amp, which is this guy. And then we are, obviously you can see I spliced in. This controlled my DRLs and my ACC for the Switch Pro. It's going to do the same. So I'm going to clip this and then resplice. And we're going to get into that in the install. But for now, this is the fuse that you guys are looking for. So when you open it up, 7.5, 7.5, 15, pull the 15, do your add a circuit, and then make the connection. Again, we'll get into that. But in the meantime, for mounting, this is where I'm choosing to go. Over there is perfectly acceptable. I'm choosing here because the firewall access, there it is. You can see the red cord. The firewall access actually is going to be where we put our control wire through to be able to control it inside the cab. So I'm going to need to run the controller wire through there and then connect it on the inside. And then I have all this room for wire management. For me, it just makes sense. I run a lot of lights, and having room to be able to do so cleanly helps a lot. So this is where I'm going. You can go there. But let's get into first your 12-volt power source and your negative. Okay, guys. So really quickly before we get into it, we have to remove this particular piece. And the way to do that is there's a clip here and you pull in. So get a hook tool or a small screwdriver. I'd recommend a hook tool. So we're going to come in here, push in here, and then on this side, there's a clip right there that does the same. So we are going to go ahead and use our trusty little hook tool, and I'll flip the camera around now so you guys can see, but I wanted to give you that close-up so when I'm removing it, you're not going, where the heck is he doing this from? So it's here, and it's here, and then this piece slides up. So let's do that right now. Okay guys, now that I showed you where the tabs are, this one we're going to push in. So push in, lift up. Oh, it came right out. So push in, lift up, yada yada. This is the piece that we're removing. There's that little tab. On that little tab, you actually need to pull in, so towards the front. So this one goes towards the passenger, this one goes towards the driver, and then it pulls right up. And now we have a better idea of what we're looking at here. So we have two tabs here, and it's really a question of, all right, which one are we going to go for? And we are going to be using this one, which is near the cab, goes to the driver's side, and this one goes towards the headlights. So taking a look at this cover, the one thing that we're definitely going to have to do here is figure out how we are going to get the clearance, because these are made for this. So we're probably going to have to trim this with a Dremel just to make it work. So let me go get the Dremel and take a look at that. All right, guys, so we got our cover off. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to use this one, and this is the one that's closer to the headlights. All right, so I can tell you right now, if you guys are questioning this, there's a number of videos out there showing the dual air compressor being tied into this and being ran all the way over to the other side. I can tell you those air compressors, looking at the rating, are rated up to 90 amps. So if they're installing it on this and then you have your fuse with your circuit, you're going to be perfectly fine. Most of your aux beam, your nyllights, your last fit, any of that Amazon gang switch is really only rated up to 60 concurrent amps. There's a few, I think last fit, and I think some of the newer aux beam will handle up to 80 amps of concurrent load. But in any event, both of those numbers are below the 90 amp that the ARB compressor goes off of. So you're perfectly fine here. What we're going to go ahead and do, again, making sure that we disconnected in the back earlier, right? Because if this touches any of this that's already grounded, you're going to have a little fireworks show. And you're going to have a fireworks show on what looks to be some pretty vital and expensive equipment here for the hybrid. So let's not do that, okay? So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And we're going lefty-loosey, okay? So we got that taken care of. And we're gonna go ahead and loosen. I have my clip right here. I have the other ends not connected. Just dropped my hook tool, which is amazing because normally it's this guy that ends up in the engine bay, right guys? So anyways, we're gonna go ahead now and hook this guy up. Now I'm gonna follow this line that goes all the way to the other side. So I wanna run this now under. And I got my 10 mil. By the way, this is 6 gauge wire. All right, so we got that. This guy is gonna slide right there. Now, the fun thing is, I'm gonna need to crank him down because the other one's kind of in the way. So let's flip this over. The goal here is to get a nice, secure fit between the two, because you do have another connection that you're adding on top of this. So we're gonna go ahead, get that in like that. We have our 10 mil bolt. We're gonna bolt this back down. Just like that. And grab our wrench. Socket, ratchet, excuse me, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. We're going righty-tighty now. Clamp this down. Okay, so we got that taken care of. We have our power source. We have it going set up to run along this wire, right? Because we're going to the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and tweak this down, because the next thing, guys, that we need to do is we now need to create some clearance. So I'm actually gonna take a Dremel here and cut this piece right here. So take your Dremel or your X-Acto knife, whatever you're going to use to cut along this to here, because we need the clearance. So it's it, and that's that. So I'm going to go cut this, and then we'll come right back. We'll put this back on, and we'll go over how we're going to run it. All right, guys, so I deviated slightly, and I want to show you that really quick. Rather than go ahead, and this is the best way, rather than go ahead and cut with the Dremel kind of here and here, I just drilled a hole that the 6 gauge will go through. And I'm going to use some RTV sealant, silicone clear sealant, or some Lexel. Thought I had some laying around. I'll show you guys that a little bit later. Again, with this wire, make sure you're disconnected in the rear, or this is live. And if this metal part touches anything in this engine that's metal, you're going to get a fireworks show and probably need to change your shorts. So don't do that. And I made it sound a lot more dangerous than it is, but it will scare the crap out of you. It won't hurt you. So we went ahead, we got this through. We're going to continue feeding it. And we put it a little higher up. So I actually put it right in the middle where the 45 angle is, because we're going to follow this line. So we want it to have a somewhat direct path here. And then the next fun thing we got to do is manipulate this back into place. And the reason why we did a hole instead of just cutting it is this is designed to be a splash guard. So if water gets all up in here, it stops the water from going in here. You obviously eliminate that if you just make a hole. So just me being overly cautious. It is what it is. Could have made this hole maybe a little bit bigger. There we go. There we go. And there's little grooves in the side here, guys, that you gotta kind of pay attention to. Once you get it slid into position, you're fine, but you can get just a little tight. And all right, there we go. Let's go to the other side. All right, guys, so one of the things that we want to do here is really make a nice clean install. And we're going to be coming across this right here. this harness from where our power source is to our Switch Pro unit, which is right there. So this part's optional. Again, I'm just doing it because I want a super clean install, and this just kind of aesthetically makes it look tidy. Supposedly it'll protect as well the engine. Not supposedly, it will, but I don't put too much stock into that. So I have here 3/8 plastic split wire loom. I need to figure out exactly how much I need. So running it to the box, up, over, and about there. And we're gonna wanna go just a little bit short. So we'll cut it right here, like that. And then this wire loom does split, but it's not too bad, and it is pretty big. So we're just gonna go ahead and run our loom. Normally I would just split it and run it right along the line, but I got you guys with me today, so we ain't gonna do that. There we go. It's being a little difficult. Let's see if we can't find the end, and there it is. End's right here. So if you guys get stuck in there, you can always just split it, find it, finish pulling it through like that, and you go through. You need to push it right back in. Nice, neat, clean, etc., etc. The other thing that I encourage you to do, now this is split, so obviously it's not watertight, but to prevent this from sliding around or anything like that, the easiest thing to do is grab yourself some electrical tape and just kind of just kind of wrap the end of your wires here and here. So not that big of a deal, but in any event, that makes it look, as you can see, much cleaner coming across. I mean, we'll zip tie it right here and here and here, and it's nice and clean now, so you can see that it's obviously darker than this, but once it gets washed, it's going to blend right in. Nobody's really going to catch up on it. So but this is how you run your loom. So put your wire splitter on and then figure out what your path is. In this case, I'm actually going to go ahead and come up and over and around and about, but I am going to adhere to this wire loom right here, and I'm going to try to keep it on the back side, you know, as much as I can to keep it clean. So there's things that you need to be aware of. You know, the first is your oil is right here, so you don't want to get in the way, so you might want to go here, zip tie, and then here, zip tie. Actually, that oil cap is going to be an issue, so let's just completely address that. So there is the wire loom. We're going to come up on this side, and if you do this right, you're going to have some really good areas for your zip ties. And we're going to come up and under here like that, right along that bracket. Again, how you choose to do this is up to you. I'm going for as clean as possible. So I'm running it behind these brackets, and I'll zip tie to them because they're super convenient. And there we go, a little bit here, and just like that, that's how we're gonna run it. So grab your zip ties and just start zip tying these at critical. And by the time we're done, it's gonna look nice and OEM as if the factory put it there. All right, guys, so we are home stretch now. We got, can you see it? We've got our 12-volt wire coming through, and now what we're gonna do is, between duct tape and these, solve the world's problems. These are 8-inch zip ties, and I'm just going right next to the factory kind of clips. So we got one there that I'm going to, and we got one right here that I'm going to go ahead and go to. And do yourself a favor, little pro tip. I call them mousy tails, whatever. Leave the excess up, so mousy tails up, because then you just come through with a pair of scissors and very easily clip and clip. So there we go. So we got 1 and 2, and then we have number 3 we're gonna go ahead and roll with. Now I actually covered this up with electrical tape, just, I don't know, to help a little. But in any event, again, you know, our goal is we really want to, as much as possible, blend in to the factory environment here. So that's why we're following this harness. That's why we're putting our zip ties where pre-existing clips for all of this is so that when we open this up, it's just nice and clean. And we have one more to go to right here. And then this guy, scroll down, sorry. All right, and then this guy is gonna clip in pretty much, yeah, right here. So we have one more that we need to do right there. And get our our big 8-inch zip tie and put our last one right here near the base. And now the line looks nice and clean. And in fact, in our next shot, I'm going to show you guys kind of a close-up of, you know, what we're looking like here and how I ran this and blended it in so that it looks nice and clean and doesn't stand out. So we got all those in. We left our mousy tails up. So clip those, clip those. All right, let me grab the camera and then show you guys how we got this all set up. Okay, so just a quick overview of how we got everything done here. So we started out on passenger side with this fuse box, did this, pulled it, and then there's this guy, and there's 2 little clips in here that we pull, and then this slides up. We now have him, our 12 volt goes right to here. You can see some gooiness there. We drilled a hole and we dropped some sealant back on it so we can maintain the water tightness of this. And again, this is like water resistant, not waterproof, so don't submarine your stuff. And then from there, we went ahead and followed this, and here you go. You can see a little bit where it is. Okay guys, so once you made that connection, we need to tidy it up. So this is the 12 volt wire, and as you can see, we just have it going along the factory harness. I'm gonna get another zip tie and probably just zip tie this guy up, but it's very well hidden. And now we have the positive that we made. He's down in here somewhere. So we're gonna grab the positive and come up on the underside and connect to this one that says to battery terminal, okay? So our positive is connected and our negative is now connected. As you can see, again, we're going out this square. Now the negative, we already did the positive, so the negative goes down, and I have it coming around this to the back side of the battery right here, and there is your negative. Now, I've got a wire in the way, sorry about that, but there is your negative. That is a 10 millimeter. So what you're gonna do is go ahead and back that out completely, retain everything, slip this in, so run the bolt, that 10 mil bolt through the hole here, and then tighten it down. And then you'll have your negative established. And then we have our positive and our negative, and we'll have to go ahead and address the trigger wire. And believe it or not, we're actually pretty close to done. It really is this simple. It is this quick. The rest of the time is going to be in really device and wire management. And what I mean by that is how you wire, you know, your lights that eventually tie into everything here. And we aren't going to cover that because everybody runs slightly different orientation. You're just going to have to know that obviously your positive and your negatives from each one go to the positives and negatives. It's clearly marked. It's super simple. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Again, positive, negative. What we're going to do now is pull this. So first, make that connection, tighten it down. Again, 10 millimeter, it's right there. Tighten it down. Make sure you run him behind the battery, and you'll have the perfect length wire with what's included. For this one, obviously, because I went to this side, the included wire was not good enough. So I have a really thick 2-gauge wire that goes to the jump point and runs all the way across and there. So I did purchase that, but that's just because I knew I wanted to mount it here. If you're going to that side, what's included, perfectly fine. So there's something to keep in mind. If you don't want to spend any money or run to the store, go to that side. I already have this in stock, so I ran the longer wire from over there. Anyways, we're going to make that connection, and then we're going to get into the fuse box. And I already showed you guys the out of circuit, but we're going to cover that one time. And we're also going to cover it while making the connection to the ACC wire, or the ignition wire, that is right here, also running out. Okay, party people, we've already got our negative and our positives. Now let's get into how we actually get this to turn on. And that is going to be one of these. Again, the link is in the description. These are called out of circuit, out of fuse, a jumper, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, the link's in the description. But all this is another fuse, basically, that goes into that slot. So we are going for the ECT number 1. So from the engine bay all the way to the corner closest to the driver, you'll see 7.5, 7.5, and 15. Pull your stock one to open that slot up. And then you take your stock one and you put it in the open slot in this. Then you go through, then you go through and drop this guy into the slot where that fuse was that we put in there. Now, what this does is the circuit is now still intact. So your fuse is still there. No worries at all. But we've opened another one that also does 15 amps. And these come pre-crimped with one side already on and the other side still open. Now what we're going to do is take our Diode Dynamics D-switch sensor wire bundle, and these have everything that we need for the trigger wires, night mode, etc. Now, reading the instructions, the white wire, this guy, is actually the ignition wire. So what we will do is put him into here and then crimp. And I'll include a set of, I'll include a link for some crimpers as well in case you don't have those. But we'll put that in and then just crimp. And then what's going to happen is when we turn the vehicle on, then this is going to go ahead and turn on as well. And we won't have any vampire drains when the car is off, slowly trickling down the 12-volt battery. So I'm going to make this connection and then we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so the connection's made, we crimped it. Now what to do with it? Very simple. Go ahead and course him like that. And as you can see, I significantly clipped the included sensor harness that came with it. I didn't need all those. Now, maybe if I was over there on that side mounting, I would. But for this case, everything's well within reach. So I did shorten that. We are just going to go ahead and loop this so that we can make sure we don't hinder our lid. Now, the big question, what everybody always says is, okay, what do I do with the lid? I've seen people drill into these. It's really going to be a personal preference. I personally just leave it like this and I put the lid down. And guess what? It's never failed me in years. So I think we're good there. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on and push them down, lock them in. And at this point, we've pretty much got this guy wired. We're going to have to next focus on getting the control panel installed and through that firewall, which we're going to cover with you guys. So I'm going to get this lid on and we'll pick up from there. Okay, lid's on. There's our wire. There's our harness. Now we are going to shift focus real quick to this guy because we need to make the connection. This wire which has just the red end on it, right? So there's two portions of this. This comes out, this separates, and this is what we're going to plug the wire harness into. We just made our white wire connection into. This actually goes to the controller, and there are two switches. So this is what we're going to pass through the firewall. In the meantime, though, we are going to take this guy, make the connection, and boom, done. And then from there, next we're going to go ahead and we are going to get in through the firewall. So that's coming up. Get ready for it. It's not as hard as people make it out to seem. All right, team. So our next thing is to grab this super long cord, which has these two connectors, because that is the controller connectors. So this is the end that's coming from the unit, and we're going to want to connect these two ends. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, once you do that, your next move is to grab this and basically route it however you'd like. But you are looking for that guy. So perspective, there's your fuse box that we put the D-switch in. There's your ABS modules. There is your brake fluid container. And behind this little bell looking thing is this guy. And that's the firewall plug. And you can see I've already actually got a cord going through right here. So what you're going to want to do is pull him like this and then sneak those wires in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So again, we're going to put the appropriate connection onto this, and then we're going to run our controller wire along this, keep it nice and clean. We're going to get into our firewall plug, which is right there, and all you're going to do is grab it and pull back so that you can go ahead and get wires through into the cab, and we'll pick up the video from inside the cab. Okay guys, so from inside the cab, we're then going to go to the wheel well. Okay, so for now, until my bullet point mounting solution specifically for the D-kit, D-switch gets here, I just have it in their phone holder. It actually fits just fine. So I'd like it to be over a little bit more, and the bracket will take care of that, but for now we're good. And then on the back side of the controller, you can see this is their connection, boom, boom. So we just need to go ahead and make that, and then run our wires nice and neat, zip tie them up, and we have a very clean looking install that looks like we're ready to launch an ICBM. Pretty neat, huh? But yeah, that's it. Okay, Diode fans, guess what? We're done. Yep, not even joking. We're done. It's really as simple as that. We got our positive from over there. We got our negative from over there. We hooked up our ACC ignition switch under here with an ADA circuit. We ran the wire right here, this white wire, to the sensor harness that's included. And then we did our two connections to the controller and ran it through the firewall back there. We did go ahead and take the cords and just kind of tuck them in, make it nice and neat. And then down in there, we zip tied them and stuffed them into that nice dark little corner where they will be safe and nobody's ever going to really notice them. So the last thing to do is really wire up your lights. So positive and negative to their appropriate channels. If you have backlight functionality, you're going to want to go ahead and do that separately. Now, the backlights are not going to have a positive and a negative. Your negative's already going to be handled when you plug your device into the positive and negative here. That negative is a constant. It's always negative. So as long as it gets a trigger from here, you're already covered as long as you're plugged into one of those. If all you're trying to do is, like, for instance, I'm going to plug my rock lights into one of these, well, you're going to get there and then you're going to be like, oh, there's only a positive. You need to go into one of these negatives and only the negative if that was your plan. So the backlight DRL functionality is a positive side only. Again, the assumption is that whatever you're using is going to have 3 wires, positive, negative, and then you make your backlight connection here. But yeah, other than that, everything else is personal preference. I got to reconnect everything that I had from the Switch Pro, in through here. As a reminder, and in fact, let's go ahead and do this real quick. But as a reminder, your wires for your individual things need to come up through these holes. Okay, that's very important. If you try to put it through this way, the lid won't close and it won't look clean. But you guys can see it's nice open now. And then let's go ahead and we put the cover on. Okay, two little things in the back. And we got to clear the sides. There we go. There we go. And push down. Okay, so this is, nope. Okay, so this is nice and locked in now. And for the unit, all you're going to see is those wires coming in and out. So they did leave you the hole here for positive and negative, so you can feed through there if you want to and still be able to feed out through the bottom. I just went up through the bottom anyways. But this is how you keep it nice and clean looking. I'm going to go ahead and hook all my stuff up and come back and give you guys a quick walk around. And maybe it'll help inspire you with some ideas of how you're going to do your setup, but I think it's going to show how clean this looks now compared to what it was before. I wanted to take a second because in doing the install of the D-switch to my Landcruiser, I noticed in reviewing the footage, I was spending an excessive amount of time comparing the Switch Pro